idea of uniform has deeply informed my relationship with tailoring. Our obsession where I came from was about protection. It was almost a response to maybe being indifferent to society, maybe feeling like there's a wider fear across society, but the notion of protection and utility, almost as a rite of passage growing up Black British in the UK, moving from boyhood to manhood, this overt idea of masculinity and wanting to signal that has filtered into the Cold War as a truth. My relationship with material and with fabric and how that builds into the label I founded, A Cold War, really looks to convey how material and form can be used to cleave to the body, hold the body, contort the body. My educational background and interests really lie within product design, graphic design and industrial design. That's what I did train in. So when it comes to creating garments and working with fabric, it's the mind of an industrial designer, the mind of one who is obsessed with the exoskeleton of society, you know, the raw materials, the alabaster, the sandstone, the marble, the terracotta, which has built contemporary culture and historical cultures. That relationship with treating fabric as material has really built this architectural way of conveying clothes and garments. I describe the clothes I make by placing them into two different cachets. The first cachet is more of a process of creating. It reveals itself through hand sketches, through feeling and touching materials, through working for my team. The second cachet speaks to contemporary culture, to the immediate, to pop culture. It's how people live and dress and what they need from their garments in the now. The relationship between the converged gilet and historical brass and steel and iron breastplates is immediate and direct. For myself, it was about looking at what is the purpose of armor for the now, for day-to-day use, and this prospect of being able to insulate the body, being able to enable the body to move through a commute or through a cityscape. So this is the converged gilet from our SS20, a Cold War runway collection. At this point, it's become, to a degree, a signature of the brand and how the brand conveys these prospects of protection, material, historical references, and masculinity. You've got around 3 pieces here, and then you've got decorative seam line details which run throughout. And we run between twin needle stitches down to having some of the interior pockets which have like a welt and jetted pocket. So the prospect of functionality and concealment and embellishment is totally inverted. The closure system for the main opening, which runs down the center front from the chest, you've got this, it's interesting, it's almost like a reductive lapel to a degree, you know, the type of lapel you would expect to see on like an overcoat of sorts. And actually we've brought in this idea of asymmetry and cleaving reflected in the ruching into how the lapel itself sits. I should probably mention slightly, and this idea of just having like utility snaps which are totally concealed, and also looking at how Velcro can be utilized. If you think back to Japanese Americana, or even if you think into World War II, the invention of, well, plastic coming to the fore and plastisols start to come into the fore of construction for military wear. This is where this idea of bringing in Velcro straps comes into play for the construction itself.
Hey, I'm Samuel Ross, and you're watching The Drop at Barney's with High Snobiety.
Hi, I'm Jackie Kim of Barney's New York.
And I'm Jeff Carvalho of High Snobiety.
And we are here with Sam Ross at The Drop at Barney's on Madison Avenue, New York City. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me here, I appreciate it.
Sam, you just got off a plane, you're right into the middle of it. We're at The Drop at Barney's. Your collection is amongst an amazing array of other designers. You know, you've had a pretty incredible road to getting to this point, and I'm curious to know, like, you know, what is it like being in a shop like this?
It means a lot. You know, last year I was grateful enough to have a window here with Barney's too, so to now be able to produce some exclusive garments, it means a lot to me. Barney's is a really important benchmark store culturally, so to be involved, I'm just really grateful to see, you know, and have that support.
Yeah, you know, one thing that's interesting is the lineup this morning of fans and kids coming into the store. There were two kids immediately that essentially just came in and were like, "Where is the goods?" And they went straight to your stuff, which I thought was pretty cool.
Wow.
You have quite the youth following, you know? What is that?
It's a really interesting question because I do believe I have a youth following. And I feel I've been able to kind of garner this voice to speak intellectualism through design, and that's a voice that hasn't really existed in such a clear way before. So I feel like I've found a way to just communicate a lot that isn't always said, and that's where my cult has kind of built from, you know?
You started your roots in kind of paying homage to a lot of other brands, and you moved your way into a traditional line.
Yeah.
How did you even start in all this?
So my journey is quite tiered. I first came into the fashion industry working with Virgil Abloh as his assistant and working underneath a lot of Donda projects as well. That was around 4 years ago. So from there I kind of worked very hard behind the scene diligently for several brands, including Stussy, Bayer, Pyrex Vision, many brands. And from there I'm traveling quite a lot throughout Europe. I kind of noticed this gap was missing within the UK market for a narrative that spoke to high and low fashion communities. What I did was I kind of went back, and rather than referencing American culture or European culture, I decided to look at my own upbringing, where I grew up, take my own personal influences from, graphic design, product design, Bauhaus, Dadaism, mixing it with contemporary culture, which I knew quite well because I had lived through it. And that's how a Cold War was formed. It was a life experience, paired with the fashion high-low community.
So let's talk a little bit about the collection you're releasing today.
Yes.
Can you go into that? What was your inspiration, and what are your favorite pieces?
So my favorite pieces in this collection are definitely the black nylon coat, and it has a very reflective, shiny material. It's also incredibly lightweight. What I wanted to do was, I feel like I know my consumer, and I know how myself and Barney's work quite well, so I wanted to make sure there was a strong graphic narrative to all of the goods. So I paired usually quite minimalistic choices of fabrics with slightly larger graphics, which are quite reflective of what I'm known for, together to make something quite unique, something that felt quite textured and quite loud, but also very much a Cold War down to the T.
We've been talking a lot with guests today about this idea of what street fashion and streetwear gets defined as. We know today that it's having a really interesting moment. That's not to say that it hasn't been here, because if you ask our readers and what we've been doing, it certainly has always been here. But it's now playing the same. It's playing on the same lines as a lot of big luxury designers in some sense. And I'd love to just get your take on what's that journey been like.
It's difficult to kind of comment on because I've been in this for now, I'd say fashion as a whole, around 8 years. From my journey, from the age of 18 up to 26, spending that time in it, it's been really, firstly, inspirational to see where streetwear has gone and how it's evolved out of that catchment phrase to now compete with like large houses and also collaborate. I feel like it's the future. It's two ways of working, you have the more stoic house style of communication, which is based more so on seasonal releases, which is a lot more stable. But then when you pair it with a lot of the volatile and more expressive nature and immediate nature that is found throughout the streetwear community, the two marry up quite well to cater to both sides and produce new content. So I really believe it is the future of how the way things will work within the industry. It's almost like a younger sibling and the big brother coming together to create new ways of working and new content and new art, and I'm really looking forward to see where things go.
So word on the street is that you have been going to Venice quite often.
Yes.
So can you, give us a little inside look on what that's about?
Yeah, so I've been spending a lot of time in Italy at the moment, back and forth between there and London, and it's really because we're focusing on producing a large amount of our goods from the next delivery in Italy now. We're at a point where we've been grateful enough to grow to a certain level in a short amount of time, which means we can now really start to, progress and refine further the garments and the narrative and speak in different ways.